So hello and welcome everyone to again an episode of Redefining Journey Management. And today we're going to do things a little different. It is our job to bring together world-class CX professionals, user experience, designers, managers, directors, and everyone to be able to deconstruct the best journey-centric strategies and tactics, but also learn from each other and turning journey management into the practice of your company. So today we're going to bring strategies, tactics, struggles to give you techniques, methods, and perhaps even resources to start scaling journey management in your organization. And normally we interview professionals in the field. And today we actually have Martin, one of our co-founders, CXO at Dedu, and Kaspar Kazil, our CX lead at Dedu, join us. Together, they've seen hundreds of companies over the last few months, and they've set up journey management in a wide variety of enterprise companies, from big tech to insurance to government services. And we're going to focus today on the learnings around scaling journey management, because setting up a journey framework and understanding how to start working with journeys is probably known to most of you joining us today. But really scaling this up and learning how that actually applies to your company, that's a different beast. So creating top-down support, reorganizing teams and define roles, breaking down the silos that journey management is actually designed to do, and also learning how you can set up the KPIs and bring the metrics that matter into the picture are some of the things that we'll discuss today. So before we start, little housekeeping. This is a live session. So we're going to start today with sharing some of the experiences. If you have any questions at any point, drop them in the chat or in the Q&A. And at the end, or at a big chunk of the end, I mean, around halfway, we'll address them one by one. And we'll also host a few polls to get your opinions in for today. So if you have any questions, drop them. Maybe some of them will be answered along the way. But as a housekeeping thing, we'll first share and then we'll do a Q&A together. And then at the end, I'll be closing off. We have about an hour. And without further ado, let's get started. And I want to have Martin first introduce scaling journey management and talk with you about the best practices, but also give you a little bit of guidance of where you are and how you can take this a step further. So Martin, I think your screen is shared. Please take us along for the ride. And everyone, drop your questions in the chat.
Thank you, Jochem. Glad to be here. Hello, everyone. So I'm one of the co-founders, as Jochem mentioned, and my role at Dedu is leading customer engagement. So I have the privilege to talk to many of our customers, clients, listening to their needs, how they are structuring themselves, how they are also trying to scale journey management. So that is a few insights we would like to share with you today. So first, of course, the definition. What is then journey management? How do you scale it? So one we've learned is that there's very close collaboration with behavioral design and scaling journey management. So there are three key attributes that are really, really important to have in place to start moving this big transition. One is mindset. That includes incentives, vision, strategy, and metrics and so forth to really be on par with, okay, what are we trying to achieve? Then the process needs also, of course, to be aligned. So how do we structure ourselves and what roles do we have in the business to make this happen? And of course, skills. So how are we going to have roles and people's capabilities and knowledge in place to make this transition? What we also have learned is that there are different levels, and this is key. We're going to use this pyramid across the webinar today to really align everything about how mature you are in scaling journey management. So really quickly, what we have is 5 levels. Intuition is actually that you're not quite yet using much customer-centric data and way of working yet. So you use your own intuition to solve your problems. Fragmented means that you are starting to act on customer-centric data and feedback, but in a scattered kind of way. So you do it maybe in different ways across different teams, but you're not aligning yet. Then you have coordinated. So the teams are starting to collaborate with each other around the truth that the customer actually provides you about how you're performing and why they think that way, and how you should address those. But the really, really interesting effect starts to happen around scalable level 4, when you have a really company-wide strategy where you're really aligning everything and have the methods, the budgets, and the roles really working towards one way of doing this together, how you're going to drive the best possible customer experience. And of course, answering your business goals. And the echelon that everyone hopefully will aspire for is excellence. So you are actually almost ahead of the customer. So you can read trends, you know where the customer is heading, you know what their pains and needs are before they actually know themselves. So you can actually address that up front. So just a quick little poll to begin with. Where would you say that you think you are right now with your business? So think of your organization. There can also be isolated teams that maybe have a higher level of maturity, but now think about rather more of your company. What level do you think you currently have in this context, scaling journey management? We will be using that later on for our discussion topics. So if you could answer that, we will bring that later on back to discussion.
So I'm broadcasting the poll right now. So if you don't see the screen pop up, let me know. There's 2 questions actually, but yeah, the other one is meant for later. You can already fill it in. But the most important one is like, where do you think you are right now? Level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, try to
be amazed to see someone at level 5, by the way, today. But let's see.
Try to give an honest answer, and we'll there's a great platform for us to continue on. All right. So moving on. What we have, of course, is something about just a quick recap, something that we have really used and taken with us from service design about how you work in a customer-centric way. So you maybe are familiar with the double diamond, but triple diamond is evolution of such. So what you think of is converging and expanding and converging again. Shapes of the diamond is like you go broad to research and then narrow down to find really what truly matters. So whatever business goal you might have, you begin in the left and really discover, okay, what are our customers, users, context of whatever business goals we want to solve. And then you really narrow down through using journeys to understand their context of the problem you try to solve. That becomes then your opportunities. The opportunities you can then prioritize based on how much value they will unlock, both for your business, but also for the customer user. And those then will be the great base for what solutions should we deploy to address these opportunities in the best possible way. Again, broad, you discover all the options available, and then you converge again to find the concepts that are actually working best, both for your customers and for your business, i.e. involve your customers as much as possible. And then again, development. So then define, okay, which teams are available in the best possible way from capacity and so forth, to do what we need to do. And then, you plan accordingly, and then you have solution rollout and hopefully validated outcome. So that is very basic how we structure things when we work customer-centric. Now, of course, you can apply this model in different ways depending on how mature you are. And that is something we're going to discuss from now on. So what we're going to focus on is the key 3 steps in this pyramid. So fragmented, coordinated, scalable. So we go from saying, okay, what are the characteristics and steps you need to take from moving from fragmented to coordinated to scalable in steps. And we're also going to connect with mindset, process, and skills around these different topics that we will all bring together at the end. All right, so if you are a fragmented business, recap here, you're beginning working with journeys, you are really starting to think of, okay, how are we going to do this? But you're doing it still in a fragmented way. So how are you moving into becoming more and more coordinated to do so? So first and foremost, what's really, really key is that you need to define a vision, a management vision saying, okay, we are going to do this. We are, as a team, as a company, really want to become more customer-centric and communicate that as clearly to everyone to get a buy-in, to understand, okay, this is actually happening. And that defines not only that we want to achieve it, but also how are we going to do it? Who is going to be involved? And hopefully also time-wise, how long are we going to set ourselves to do it? So that is key. Next, would be to define ownership and responsibilities. So what you also need to do, of course, is like journeys cut across horizontally across your verticals that you work with, right? Normally like marketing, support, sales, and so forth. But the experience is horizontal. So you need to have a journey management person, roles, etc., that has a responsibility and ownership of these journeys across those touch points. Who is that? Put those people in place. So you have those first roles, responsibilities, maybe still in inside out divisions and setups, but these journey management owners will then start to sort of untangle the spaghetti to make you more and more aligned to work in this fashion. Then you, of course, delegate the ownerships of who is going to do what. So who is going to take care of frameworks, boards, and so forth. And data can help you a lot here as well, because you can have that one truth and the framework and boards in place that everyone really works with and understands at one click away. And also prevent orphan journeys, meaning that there is no one who has an ownership or actually bothers about these journeys that exists, but no one actually does anything with it. So no loose ends here. Very important. Yeah, ownership means really good question there, Jochem. Thanks so much. So what you have is normally, you have a researcher that maybe has created a journey or a few journeys, and they provide that information to the organization. But then it's about ownership is like, okay, who is owning and driving this? It's not only the journey itself, but actually all the content that is in there, and also the solutions and opportunities that derive from it, and really own that. So it's not only about, hey, we now realize that there is a pain and need and so forth mapped in this journey, but really create a workflow around, okay, how we're going to tackle it and work with it across the different contexts and focus areas we are trying to focus on. Bear in mind, it doesn't have to be across your whole organization. It can also be a specific topic that you want to focus on first, to really be as narrow as possible to just get that proof of concept, and from there on expand. So it's also about finding that who is available and also who can tackle this with their available time and so forth.
Do you mean that in the beginning days, it might be like a product manager or a product director or a UX designer that says, okay, I'm gonna be responsible for part of this next to my other job? Is that what you mean? Or dedicated roles from day one?
Yeah, look, so transition wise, going from fragmented and beyond is, of course, that you have to more or less be hopefully released from your traditional duties to be able to do this, because this can be time consuming as well. But what we normally see is that you will get first this as an addition to what you normally do, and you try to squeeze this in as well in between things. Maybe not the best way, but it's a start. So over time, you will be more and more dedicated to do this, and maybe only do this in this fashion, and create more rather a dedicated team that is maybe an end-to-end team that is focusing on that as well. So that would be standardize your workflow around that one team that you have available to do this. So you maybe have, someone who is working with only, say, a mobile app, for instance, and that is what you do as an expert. But how could you maybe as a mobile app team focus also on delivering it as based on journeys and a horizontal experience that you're also connecting everything with? So it's not only your technical tasks that you're trying to solve, or your horizontal, financial KPIs you're trying to do on conversion, but actually focusing more on the customer experience that you're also designing against. Moving on towards becoming more coordinated. So what you have here, then again, recapping, you're not doing it maybe in a fragmented way, but you're really trying to orchestrate and coordinate how you can do this across different teams in a one way that is recognized by all these different teams. So we call it work across verticals. With verticals, we mean, marketing, sales, support. A very, very good question or experience we have is one big company that had huge issues with support, for instance, where support was not able to actually even see or know who the end customer was and what they were actually helping. They were only helping, in a technical kind of focus, but the customer was looking at rather the more contextual experience. Where does this issue happen? Why am I not supported immediately when I need the help here and now? if you would work across verticals and you really connect, sales, customer support, and also product performance, then suddenly the bigger picture arises and you actually know how you're, part of a bigger chain that is cutting across horizontally. And when you have those information available, you can start to make, priorities about what truly matters, not only for us as a business, but also from a customer perspective. So in data, you can do that through opportunities, for instance, where you can very easily look at, okay, where across the different journeys is their biggest pain and needs according to our customers, on very, very big picture level down to very micro level across your journeys. You can then identify those opportunities and start to prioritize them based on how much value they unlock for both the customer, user, and us as a business. And that then becomes the reason for collaboration across your verticals, what to do next and in what order as well. Include everyone, also your customers, we say. You forgot about those guys, right? So include everyone means like be transparent, provide accessibility to what you're doing, so people can at least view and see what is happening. Have access to the journeys, give people the right to feedback and ask questions. You can do that very easily with Data. Actually, if you have an SSO, you can invite the whole organization for free to actually view all the different journeys, opportunities, solutions that everyone is working on, and actually be involved in the process. That way you get buy-in and also hopefully, questions and engagement. But bear in mind, customers is of course very, very key here as well. So you have them as well part of almost your processes and your teams when you collaborate as much as possible. We'll get a good example of that when you go into really scaling and excellence later on, what we have experienced with a few customers, how they did it. And of course, increase skill level. It's pivotal to know, okay, how are we going to do this, right? So don't take for granted, like, everyone can work customer-centric and that is something you will know in 1 or 2 afternoons. No, there is, some amount of knowledge that needs to be transferred, both through us as guides and coaches from Data, but maybe an agency you might be working with, or content that there is available out there. For instance, our guides and also the community we're just creating to engage amongst, each other to share knowledge and experiences, how to do that in the best possible way. And also acknowledge success and certificate that, celebrate, be inclusive and say, hey, we achieved this. We are now, level 3. Great. Let's move on to level 4. Make it tangible what is actually required. And don't forget those poor designers, that we need to have a good ratio between designers and engineers. That definitely helps, because designers always thinks about the customer and how to design the best solutions around them. Of course, we are also about tracking and measuring what we're doing, right? And this is something maybe service design previously has been struggling with a little bit. Some people might think that, how do you measure value and so forth? But what we're also trying to do is to integrate very tangible scoring and KPI systems into Data as well, so you can truly measure what is actually going on and what is the delta between what was versus what is once you have implemented these solutions. For instance, NPS, CSAT, et cetera, those metrics will be integrated in Data fairly soon, starting with Qualtrics in about 7 weeks from now. So that can be really, really in an automated way, a great way of having a threshold that alerts based if you go below or above a specific level, that you then know, okay, we're doing it really well. So that is really, great feedback to know how you're performing. All right, moving into scalability now. So now we're truly focusing on not doing it just according to across teams and so forth and team members, but truly like do this at scale and have one way that we can truly expand and have everyone truly collaborate around being customer centric and pushing out the best possible customer experience you might have. So here we often come across governance teams. So, maybe most customers are really still, focusing on journey mapping, but as soon as you go into journey management, a lot of customers say, hang on, but we need to have a way of governing all this stuff. Who is actually in charge? Who is responsible? How are we going to, release budgets and remove vertical barriers for everyone to be able to work in this way? And that might take some time to get up and running. Don't be afraid. It's something that everyone goes through, and you know, the more you are prepared and know what is coming, the better you can also prepare for you know, governance and who is doing what and what their responsibilities are, of course. One great way, of course, is to have a CCO or a CXO, or maybe a sponsor that you call something else, but has the authority and ownership of driving this change across your organization, who really puts the voice of the customer at the C-level, that also is removing and has the authority to remove barriers once they occur. So people on the ground are protected to actually do this and have the time available to actually implement it. A great thing we're actually seeing is that more and more organizations do have chief experience officers, so CEO, experience officers, sorry, so it should be XO. But you know, what are their roles and responsibilities, and how much are they really involved in paving the ground for everyone doing this is key, that we really want to see more of. Another thing that is really, you know, living in two different worlds still is quantitative data and qualitative data. So qualitative data obviously normally was and still is, you know, journey information, empathy studies, and so forth. And quantitative data is, you know, for instance, NPS, CSAT, but or other, you know, Google Analytics, what have you. That can now more and more become sort of available in one location where everyone has access to both worlds, and really make those two sources come together when you make the crucial decisions you're making. Something we really like to say is that quantitative data tells you what happened and when, but not really why it happened in the first place. But qualitative data does. And when you have those both in the same place, you're really empowered to make the right choices, both on a very strategic level, but also based on what the project to run with next. And we are really seeing that amongst our customers, especially, you know, Qualtrics and NPS data and so forth is already used a lot, but they haven't merged them yet with journeys. And that is something we will be offering in about 7 weeks from now. So really excited about that. Another one, and that is, you know, continuous research and validation around what are we actually creating? What are we doing? What are we building? Is this really, you know, understood and embraced by the user, customer, employee, what have you? Co-create together with them. So we have a few examples of where we did that in previous, you know, gigs and projects where we actually involve the customer in co-creations and actually presenting it back to the stakeholders. So we actually placed the customer at the center of the stage and said, hey, look, these are ideas and solutions that would you implement them? We would be more loyal to you as a business. We would buy more from you. And that works magic. It really can shift around the backlog priority within 5 minutes. We have seen it happen. It's fantastic. It's really powerful. And you can also measure that with desirability, viability, and feasibility that you can track in Dado and have that also, you know, structured and you know, help you to make priorities of what you should push to, for instance, Jira or Azure moving forward. And then coordinate CX across stable teams. So this is a, you know, really high-end school, but what we have learned, what works really well is that you still should keep, you know, specialized teams focusing on what you are experts in. For instance, say the mobile app, or, you know, website conversion, or, you know, retail experience and so forth. That is what your specialty is. And preferably you should be an end-to-end team in doing so. So it's not only engineering sitting in there, but also you have design, you have some research, and also some representative from maybe from the business. And then what you have is have Dado really show you and give you that information on how the holistic experience looks like and how those stable expert teams are part of that big picture. And then the sort of coordination of orchestrating everything distributes the work to those specialized end-to-end teams that really deploy everything based in this best capacity and knowledge, i.e. they are specialized in doing so. And then those outcomes contribute to the bigger picture. So if everyone is focusing on the same thing that truly matters, both from the customer perspective and from the business perspective on the holistic horizontal level, but it's then distributed to those stable end-to-end teams, and then, you know, everyone is contributing to what truly matters at that moment, you actually collaborate, but still maintaining those expertise and stable teams. And that is something that requires a lot of practice and organizational structuring to actually get going. But once it's in there, it really works magic. And we have been starting seeing that across a few of our customers already. And of course, the bigger the organization, the bigger the challenge. So maybe you need to maybe focus on what could we work in this fashion rather on a smaller scale, rather than everywhere at once. So that is also a way of trying to find results as quickly as possible. And then finally, use customer-centric goals at C-level. So what we mean by that, we see that what you're rewarding and what you're endorsing result-wise is normally what everyone is striving to achieve, right? So if everyone is trying to strive to achieve only KPIs that are saying financial targets and so forth, efficiency, etc., then everyone will run for that. But if you truly start to also focus on customer experience and the value you're providing on such a level like C-level, then of course that will trickle down to everything you're doing moving forward. And that becomes also as important as everything else. If you have that in place and you can then align it with your journeys and then prioritize opportunities and solutions accordingly, you will be seeing very quickly results as well. And that is essential. So in summary, these are a lot of different, things, chapters we know that you can take into consideration in one or different phases, the 5 phases. And Kaspar will now go into a summary of how this all works. And we will also want to talk to you about what is your experience with these topics. Are they familiar to you? Are they totally new to you? Which ones would you like to discuss further?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Great presentation and great points. Just to summarize, right? So we have these 3 main topics with varying actions that you can take there. And we also have these 5 levels of maturity. And we see that you can actually, map those in one overview. And this is what you get. So when you look at skills, for example, there are several things you can do there. So you can start from one standardized workflow. So everyone works in the same way. You have standardized journey templates, for example, etc. Then if you move along, you have the increase, you can work on increasing the skill level, hiring new people, maybe join the community, use our sessions or training tools that we have there. And then we have journey management, the governance team, setting that up, really making that explicit, having a team that can create budgets that can scale up across not just one team, but multiple teams. And as a side effect, also coordinate CX across those teams. That's on the matter of skills. If we look at process, it's much more, for example, about defining the roles and responsibilities, making sure that there's no orphan journeys, and once you have that allows you to then start working across those verticals, because everyone knows what part of the life cycle they're responsible for. And you can then also start including everyone, not just as a contributor, but also as viewers, of course, which data allows to do free as much as you want. And then if you have that base, you can use that to expand to actually starting continuously researching and validating. And also maybe even include someone like the CCO or the CXO to really get this overview in the board and actually start driving strategic decisions as well. So you can see how all of these elements actually build on on top of each other, and one allowing, enabling one thing allows you to take the next step. And then finally, of course, we have the mindset. So it all starts, as Martin mentioned, with the vision. If once you have that, you can also start measuring and tracking journey outcomes, and maybe even evaluating projects based on that, because you have defined that this vision, that it's important. Once you are starting to measure, then it becomes really interesting, because you can then start merging quantitative and qualitative measurements, and also using customer-centric goals at the C-level. So not just look at financial goals, for example, but also really, maybe have NPS as one of your strategic goals that you are looking to improve. So you really see this sort of build up where one thing builds on top of the other. And what I would be very interesting to know is, yeah, what do you see as the most interesting topics to discuss for the rest of the session? So looking at Jochem here, let's maybe do another poll.
Well, actually, Kaspar,
yeah?
Everyone has already filled in the question because we were so nice to put all of the questions there at once. So I can like publish the results now.
Perfect.
And then we'll go into the Q&A, live Q&A, and I'll pick a few of the topics from here as well. Before I do that, I like the questions in the Q&A and in the chat that we are already seeing. The maturity model you guys are creating, and this is a rolling maturity model, right? We're learning from our customers as we go and in understanding what are the different challenges in each of the different stages we see. Some will tackle some in other stages, but in general, these are the 5 stages that we go through. And then what you see here is F. Gara says, like, have you tried this overlay with the maturity map for UX maturity? And Doug says, hey, I've been creating these kind of maturity models for organizations. Now I'm on the receiving end of this. So this is a great framework to put everything in the right order. And what I'm curious about, to open up the Q&A for everyone, is like what we see here in the published results. I'll share. Do you now see them?
Yep.
Magically up here.
Yes,
most of us today are in level 2, right? We're fragmented, but that is where the journey work starts. And based on your experience, Kaspar, Martin, what have you seen some of the most mature organizations that we have the pleasure working with do in those early steps? Like, was it, okay, we'll start with 1 or 2 journeys, but we have the framework already set up, or we have one end-to-end team that is responsible for implementing an entire journey that can do this. Like, what was their first steps? What were their first steps looking like that others can learn from to be successful? Are there like patterns that you've uncovered at level 2, specifically around setting it up? Very practical examples, maybe you can share.
Yeah, I can give a first stab at that. So you can have different maturity levels simultaneously in a organization. So what the successful ones did or do still is that they have identified maybe two core teams that have a very high maturity level within the team, right? So they lead by example. So they maybe find a very distinct problem that they solve in this fashion, and then explain it by doing rather than saying how they did it, and actually not only show the outcome, but actually the whole process of, we started here, these are all the different steps we made to get to this result. And then by demonstrating it, hopefully inspire others to follow as well. So it's always about being positive and encouraging, hey, look, this is an alternative way of doing it. And because they are mature, they can also very, very clearly also connect with the problems that business actually is facing, not only from a customer journey perspective or customer journey management perspective, but also the business challenges that they might also face, right? So they can have both contexts that they can connect with.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Actually, I'll share a link to a guide that we have there. But of course, I can also just answer you here right now. So there's a few principles that you can use. First of all, the more clearly you define your opportunities, the easier it will be to score. And one thing that really helps is to also link your opportunities to some solutions already, because opportunities can still be a little bit vague. But once you actually have a list of, this is the opportunity and these types of solutions belong to it, becomes much more easier to actually, imagine what it actually means, this opportunity. Another thing that really helps is, we have this matrix, of course, in Dado that you can use to score opportunities in relation to each other. And that's really important, because by that, you actually create a benchmark and a reference frame that you can use to score them in relation to each other, which of course is very important, because if you have multiple teams and they all come up with their own opportunities, what is sort of the communal frame of reference that you have when you score them? Well, actually the opportunities themselves can become this reference frame. So that makes sure that you actually, a rating of 80% for one team actually is also a rating of 80% for the other team.
One addition to that is of course that everyone, hopefully within the organization, uses the same sort of criteria when it comes to how to prioritize. So you all, compares apple with apples and not apples with pears. So once, and that is something you can decide in Dado, is this: you set the criteria and then you lock them down, and then whoever is going to use it will be following the same rule sets when you make those priorities, regardless how large the opportunity is or how small it is.
Yeah, great addition. Maybe one last thing that I can add, and then let's move on to another question. There's much more in the guide, by the way, so you can really dig into it. But last but not least, include experts, right? Include different types of, if you're prioritizing across teams, have someone from every team there present. Also include different perspectives, so for customer value, invite a marketer or a salesperson or a service designer, but when it's about the business value, include a business manager, a financial expert, etc. So really have these different perspectives present when you do the prioritization. Then I can host a session, for example, with it. And that really helps you to have all the different perspectives represented when you make that prioritization choice.
And it's often overlooked, but having the connection from the opportunities back to the journeys where they sprung from or they impact if they're addressed is one other way that we see teams execute this way faster, because if you do it in a Miro board or an Excel, you don't have that reference. And then the set of opportunities you have is final. But there's obviously a bigger context that these opportunities are part of. And by having a link to journeys and the impact, relative impact between them, is actually a useful dimension to add there. I think also the question was around specifically the customer and the business axis. Like on the y-axis, you would have the business value, and on the x-axis, you would have the customer value. And then you would have a matrix overview or a 2x2 almost with the opportunities. But can you give one example of like how to define a little bit more detailed how a customer value is constructed, what goes into that in some cases, and the same for business? I mean, I can imagine it's sometimes a revenue target or conversion metrics that go into it. Can you give examples how you see companies do this?
Sure. I mean, one very, very easy way is actually look, because once you have identified a pain point or need across a journey or several journeys, that is obviously indicating that this is an opportunity for improvement, right? But then you discuss, okay, hang on, but what is the value impact? So what we then say sometimes is like, what is the frequency? So how frequently would the customer experience this improvement? So is it once a week, every day, or once a year? And also volume. So how many of your customers would experience this improvement? So if you talk to a very narrow amount of personas, customers versus all of them. So those can also quantify the impact of that improvement, of course. So that those are two key, very easy ways of doing it. And, when it comes to business impact, you might have, again, going back to, if I may just go back and forth in the presentation, if you have the triple diamond again, right, you might have a business goal that you need to focus on. Whatever it is, maybe you have defined on strategic level. You can think of like, how much is this opportunity part of actually addressing this goal? Is it directly related, or is it just nice to have, etc.? So is it directly delivering against that specific maybe KPI that we are responsible of delivering?
Awesome. So you can see there's many dimensions to prioritizing. It's the topic of a next session we'll host in 2 weeks. Kaspar and I will be there. So if you want to know more and have more questions around that, we'll also show execution examples in Dedu Live, how people do this, sampling them. That would be cool. Maybe we'll have a guest experience by Martin if I hear the insights he can share, but we'll see about that. Let's move on and see some other questions. So I have one from Warren Duffy. Hope I get that right. Thanks for the question. And also complex question, or simple question, maybe complex answer. Let's see. Do you have any perspective on enabling data for the entire organization? Or let's make it journey management for the entire organization versus the design or journey team as a starting point? What has been your experience balancing access to client experts like the design team, who clearly know Triple Diamond and know what they're doing, versus allowing all teams to just randomly build journeys? And he says, I can see how this can get out of hand. I think that's a good thing, or not, because then everyone gets exposed to the same journeys. But yeah, of course, standardization is part of that. But maybe can you speak to your perspectives on enabling data for the entire organization?
Yeah, I can give a stab at that first, and maybe Kaspar, you can fill in if you also have a good case. So there are a few customers that are like, having journeys in the, close to 1,000 journeys already in Dado. What does that mean? Well, you might have C-level people that are defining again the business goal, and they are focusing on what are we going to do next? And those will end up being something we call projects in Dado, currently called challenges. But those will then set the ground for, okay, what are we going to do next? And then the research team is focusing on making data accessible, liquid, up to date, so everyone can understand it, digest it, and work with it. So everyone will be able to, take those business goals into context, while also looking at what is the experience from the customer perspective. So that is what the research teams are then, adding to the mix. And then the business units are then focusing, okay, what opportunities are we going to focus on based on those priorities we just discussed, that take both the business value and the customer value into context, and also maybe the effort required to implement. And then what you do is that you have the product owners coming in and thinking about, okay, these are the prioritized opportunities that we are going to focus on making based on the, for instance, the opportunity matrix that gives you guidance within, say, okay, within marketing, you can zoom in on marketing. What are the opportunities that relate to marketing that we're going to focus on? And maybe they are connected to, sales, etc. So we have those ways of zooming in and out very easily. But then the product owners are coming in and saying, okay, what are our best ability to solve these? So then they have a different focus within Dado. And then they come up with solutions that they validate together again with research, CX, UI design, what have you. Or it can maybe be a whole new business model that you're deploying. And then you validate it, and then you push it out to your management tool, maybe Jira and Azure. So once you grow in complexity and size, you will have different roles within your business doing different things in Dado. So it's rarely like one person does everything, but rather you have then more over time, that Dado brings everything together, but you're still sort of enhancing what you're already doing, but in a coordinated way.
Nice. Let me know, Warren, if this answers your question, and maybe to follow up with a question from Doug. And I think this is related. He said, he asked, how do I craft a narrative that helps me bring everyone in the room so this engagement and transformation can gain momentum? Because the journey-centric transformation is what we're talking about in essence here. Do you have tips on creating that narrative? I mean, like you share, Martin, people buy stories, right? So yeah. How do you do that?
Well, it's a good one. We are going to implement this feature in Dado about how to tell a story. So what we try to do is not to only show the end result, hey, here's the solution, now look, let's see what it does, but rather how you got to it. And what our experience from previous days when we were practicing service design as coaches was more or less to take everyone through the space of how you got to the decision you're going to work on. So that means, who is the customer persona or end user, customer, employee, etc.? What is their scenario in this context that we are doing? So you take them through maybe not all the detailed journeys, because Dado gives you a very good overview on a sort of very high level down to very detailed level. So you find the elevation of flight that makes sense to you. You can filter information in a very easy way, on and off, depends what is really relevant. Then you go through that. You say, based on this, we found the following opportunities, and these are the solutions. What is really cool is that we also encourage to keep those solutions and ideas that actually failed, because then you can say that they existed and no one has to do it over again. So you can actually track those. You never do that in Jira and Azure, right? You never track the failed, projects. But what we want to do in Dado is to actually collect everything into different contexts, so you can already revisit what has been happened or done before. And that gives you a very good argument to, this is what we're going to do. And back to what I just explained before, if you actually let the customer tell that story, that is a really powerful experience.
Nice. So that corporate learning, even though that's not the nicest term in the world, is actually enabled by, people change roles all the time, but the knowledge stays present around the journeys. I like that a lot. So
really practical, sorry to interrupt, but really practical. It can be a matter of recording a video, Loom video or something, if you work asynchronously or remotely, where you take the different steps and demonstrate it as a video, which can be just 2-3 minutes related on topic, and then you distribute it accordingly, where you use maybe Dado as your sort of stage.
I like that a lot. Switching gears a bit, I see 2 questions that are related. I'm gonna see and take a stab if I can tie them together. One is from Simon Schoris, hope to get that right, and Brian Codl. And it's about business processes and incorporating backend systems. So I know you wrote an extensive piece on blueprinting already, Kaspar, but if the business perspective is strong, Simon asks, even BIA processes are in place on the enterprise level. Have you experienced Dado to play with other existing processes and tools? And then Brian is asking something similar, like how do you see Dado incorporating, representing backend systems or services even that happen behind the scenes while a customer is waiting for that system to respond? I think they're related. Maybe you can judge that better than I do, but can you speak to that and how you see those things?
Well, of course, you can make service blueprints. So that's basically a map where you map out all the steps. And then per step, you actually do not only record, what is the customer experience per step, but you also really dive into, what are the front end, back end systems, and what supporting systems do we need to actually enable those steps to take place. And that's always an interesting step to go from, a journey or like a prototype of a journey that you have in mind to something that you can actually put live, and considering all the technical aspects that you need to take in mind there as well. Maybe that's something that answers your question, but Jochem, feel free to add more if you...
One of the things I'm like what we're navigating towards, I mean, we will not replace business process diagramming or making sure that all the data flows are structured. But what we see process team enjoy bringing the customer perspective in and say, okay, we have the journey. Then we're layering on, like Kaspar says, the backstage, the front stage, the data process in between to get an idea of what's where and where the gaps are and where people, in that case, need to wait. But it's also interesting to get the data in, right? If you have, let's say, a Salesforce that is actually calculating how many people are actually calling your service agents at a given point in time. Like that number changes over time as you implement maybe solutions to help them wait less long or have less questions. So bringing that data in, structuring even not the process itself, but the data around the process back into your journeys, which is the visual layer that people love to communicate around, is actually helping bridge that gap, because process teams by nature are internal focused, but by bringing that customer perspective in, by connecting it to the journeys, is one way that we see organizations do this at scale. I don't know if this is good answer, maybe abstract, but this is one of the things that we see. So it's helping. Good. That's the answer. Simon says, my question is rather about establishing a tool and connected flows like Dado in enterprise environments, where Dado will be rather considered for a while by biz people. I like that. Okay, cool. Yeah, what we see, and then Martin, you can share your perspective, is that big enterprise companies, they do their assessments, right? We sometimes get evaluated amongst 8 tools, very varying different tools, and also process tools. Till today, we come out on top because we focus on intuitiveness and ease of use. We focus on the user. So that is one of the things that we see. But every business is different. So in some cases, it makes sense to have a process tool in place. But in most cases, it makes sense to have something customer-centric. Martin, can you speak to what you see there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, definitely we are in the process of expanding and more and more facilitate also process management. I don't think we will ever become the best process management tool there is out there, but definitely be able to follow through from okay, what are we going to do and why, and then track that across the whole flow. We are right now expanding with integrations, where we will be more and more offering integrations with different platforms that you can sort of connect and collaborate. Our aim is that you will have data in, i.e., as Jochem mentioned before, Salesforce will definitely come up, so you can have a Salesforce lane or a Zendesk lane, what have you. And based on that, capture as much arguments for what are we going to do and why, and then output that into whatever format it might need to be in. Product board, Figma. Right now we have Azure and Jira, of course, and whatever that might be. But what you want to do is, of course, to track, okay, we are going to do this. This is the end result. And what are we expecting that end result being, i.e. impact, right? So with, we see here now, for instance, NPS readouts or whatever readouts you want to then validate it against should be also available in a journey format that you can then look at and understand in the context. Because something we also see is that a lot of companies out there are swimming in big data, but that big data is also so difficult to decipher for most people. Okay, if you're a data scientist, you get it. But if you want to really make very good decisions and really mix and understand what you're actually trying to do, you need to put it in a very easy to understand context, which definitely journeys deliver. So that way you will also be able to measure, you know, before and after, have we actually delivered what we assumed we should deliver?
Yeah. And there are some specific arguments that you can bring to the table. Simon, if you want to know more, just send us an email. We can review your case specifically and give you better answers. Maybe this is like a general answer. Switching gears to business value streams, also something that is a concept that is taking foothold in the enterprise, and it's closely related to journey management, or maybe even the same. I don't know if we have some business value streams fans today here, but it is kind of similar. The question from Ev is, have you tried to use this? And I think journey management is what you mean with this, for business value streams. And I think we even have a few companies that have value streams used for journey clusters, boards, and then bring the journeys in to identify these value streams. Do we have some of those examples, Martin or Kaspar, that you know that you can speak to, or shall I give a general answer to this?
Give a general answer, and I'll think of my sort of library of cases. So meanwhile.
Yeah, so the value stream is more of almost of a portfolio management technique. But what we see is that the value stream, or the chain of events, if you will, can also be expressed through journeys. And if you use the perspective of the customer, because journeys are just the tool that we all like to use to say, these are the steps people go through one by one. These are the things that we as the organization do to make it possible. And here's the opportunities for innovation. It's as simple as that, right? From journey to opportunity, and then think about the solutions we want to bring in. Way more nuanced. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here. But you can say like a bunch of journeys together, or a structure of journeys together, defines the entire value stream, including the existing solutions, including the existing teams working on these, and the priorities that we have, and the opportunities or the problems that we have acknowledged from our customers. So I think this is a matter of structuring with what you already are familiar. And this is also key. Making journey management scalable is all about not transforming everything from day one, but actually it's like, how do we call things? What does a journey look like? How do we map our existing language we have onto what journey management is about? Go from journey to opportunity to solution to align with delivery, which is something you probably are familiar with. So I think changing your value stream approach to something is quite scary, because you have to go through all the different decision-making process around that, but rather think about journeys fitting into this as a hand to a glove. Is the library running, Martin?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a good case. I have a bank that is really focusing, obviously, on business value, right? So what we have is that they have identified how they actually answer the jobs people hire them for, and how they're delivering that value, business value, right? So for instance, like, you know, there are different reasons why you engage with a bank. I think most of us know what it could be: pension, you know, savings, and you know, mortgage, etc. Of course, then you have B2B, B2C, and so forth. But what they understood was like, we are offering a big product portfolio of you know, delivering business value to our customers. But then if we understand what intersection of those values actually are, and what actually, how we wrap it, how we communicate it, and how we offer those back to our customers based on the experience they have with us, they were better able to design what value they actually deliver. And by, structuring everything around need states, so the reason why are people engaging with us in the first place, rather than thinking about it in a vertical kind of fashion, a lot of information was suddenly revealed and unlocked to them. So that was one example. And we have others, like there is a marketplace, really large e-commerce marketplace that really understood, like, okay, how can we enhance our partners to be a better version of themselves? So how can we make them even more profitable, even more engaged, even sell more, have a better reach and so forth through our platform? And previously, maybe they were looking at their customers rather from segmentation perspective, but they understood right now, what is the business value they have right now through us, and how can we enhance that better? And by focusing on that, rather, also not maybe per se journey, but rather more looking at it from value added way, and what are their potentials, they were unlocking business value both for themselves and for their customers and partners in a totally new way as well, by actually structuring everything in a journey management fashion. So maybe a little bit vague, but those are two good examples that I can think of.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And it also makes sense to your point that having a CXO or CCO or even the CEO buy into your journey management vision, if you can connect it to your business value streams, which is a defined concept, you just have a better chance of succeeding, because it's the same thing for different ways of doing things. So maybe we have time for one more question before we wrap it up.
Jochem, I would be actually interested to hear from one of the companies that is on level 3 or 4, if they can maybe mention the biggest barrier that they had to cross to get there, and maybe how they did that. If someone can share something on that, I think that would be very interesting for all of us to hear more about.
Cool. Is there someone who wished to share?
You should be able to actually enable the microphone and add your experience there.
All right.
Just to challenge the audience a little bit.
Who feels like sharing one? I cannot see who voted on what, so that is unfortunate. Otherwise, I could have called some names.
Well, we have
anyone wishes to share one of the biggest barriers they overcome and how they did it? Someone wants to share a little bit about that?
If not, we can also another question.
No, I think it's time, and I also don't want to be, or I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So, Martin, can you go to the last slide? Because
yeah, sure.
Love the discussions here, and I think everyone has different perspectives on coming here. But what we also see is that we try to share a lot the patterns that we see, bringing in the knowledge from all our customers and turning that into features, but also into content that others can learn from. But the biggest thing that people enjoy is connecting with each other. Like when we connect a bunch of customers together where we're not even present, and we're going to take that to the next level. So we will create a journey management community where people can join and share their knowledge and have these discussions live in person, get together. We're here to facilitate that. And we want to start the journey management community. So if you enjoyed today, if you want to connect with your peers, exchange learnings and hear about those level 4 people that also will join the community, we can subscribe to the community launch. I will drop a link in the show notes, but since you're all in data, you will also get an email from us about it. But if that sounds like you want to do, you can. Let me just drop it in the chat. And here we go. And that is our wrap up for today. So on the last slide, community launch, it's September 13 from 4 to 5, same time. So we can include our friends across the pond, as they say, as well. And sorry for New Zealand time if that's a bit awkward, but we'll make it up to you next time. Please join us. It was a pleasure having you, Martin, Kaspar. Thank you so much for sharing this. I know people are asking for the presentation as well. So I guess we can say we will share all the materials and the recording once we've processed this. And until then, until the next time of redefining journey management together. See you all later.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye.